beginnings, fresh start, a chance to hit the reset button after a season of eating, drinking, being merry, eating some more. So it's not surprising that come January, many of us feel the need to set some goals, which are usually unrealistic, but set goals and evaluate life. The thing is, though, that only 8% of resolution makers actually achieve their resolutions. Inspiring, right? Now, I decided to set some resolutions that I can accomplish this year. I'm going to eat more. I'm going to gain some weight. And I'm going to get a year older. Amen? But it is January 1st today, and we really should be glad for this reference point in our lives. And each year I find myself with some very familiar goals. Lose some weight, read more, pray more, read better, reread some of the classics, some of the great books I've already read, save some money, write a little bit more, and spend more time with people. And I encourage you today to set goals and make your resolutions, because they do give us a sense of focus, something to go after. But this morning I want to focus on one suggestion and then explain that suggestion. And if we can get this one thing in our hearts and this one thing in our minds this year, then we're going to find out that the year ahead will lead us to a different and better direction. Our text this morning is Luke chapter 10, verse 38 to 42. So if you got your Bibles today, if you would turn there, I'd appreciate it. The name for this morning's sermon is Choosing What is Better. So turn to Luke chapter 10, verse 38 to 42. It's a pretty familiar story for all of us. It's the story of Mary and Martha as they entertain Jesus and his disciples in their home. Luke chapter 10, verse 38. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister named Mary, or called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to join him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you're worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." Now this is pretty neat, because in our studies in Hebrews, in the letter of Hebrews, in the last few months, we learned that the Jews had a mindset of calling that which is good, good, and then better, and then best. And advertisers still use that today. So again, Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. Now in verse number 38, we're told that Jesus and his disciples were on their way. Now if we'd go back to chapter 9, you would see where they're on their way to. You would see where they're going. In Luke chapter 9, verse 51, we're told that Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem. He had set his goal as Jerusalem. And so on their way to Jerusalem, Jesus and his disciples stop at the home of Mary and Martha. If you'll remember, Mary and Martha were the sisters of Lazarus, who was later raised from the dead. And also, it was Mary who was the one that broke the alabaster jar of perfume and anointed Jesus' head with it. Now, Bethany, this little town of Bethany, was located about 1.5 miles to the east of Jerusalem, and it was on the southeastern slope of the Mount of Olives. Bethany was also a frequent place to stop when you were going to or coming from Jerusalem. So it was just right outside the city, and most people who couldn't afford to stay in the city or didn't have relatives in the city would stop at this little place called Bethany, where the prices were probably lower for things, and it was probably more hospitable than being in the big city. But they would stop there. So it wasn't an easy job to host this entourage of Jesus and his disciples. Over the last couple months, we've had several big dinners at our house, and our family always seems to be expanding. And then anybody that doesn't have any place to go usually ends up at our house. And so for Thanksgiving, we had about 30 people there. For Christmas, we had about 25 people there. And I know it takes my wife several days to prepare for that many people. And she's just going nonstop. I told her, babe, don't worry about it. What we have is what we have. But she wants to make everything nice, and she wants to make everything good. Teddy and her will bake for days, getting all these pies to help me reach my New Year's resolution. All these pies and cookies and fudge and all this junk that I'm not supposed to have, they'll work for 3 days. And what I'm wondering is that I have a big insurance policy that's fixing to run out pretty soon, because it's one of those that lasts you so long and then you have to start over. And I'm just wondering if she's not trying to finish things up before this next round. I know my insurance policy is going to go up again because I'm getting a little older. So I'm just wondering, as they bake for those 3 days, what do they really have in mind? But anyway, it wasn't an easy job to host this many people. You've got Jesus, you've got the 12 disciples, you've got all those who follow him. So there may have been anywhere from 13, 14 people to 30 or 40 or 50 people. We don't know. But Jesus and his disciples entered into Martha's home. Why did she have a home? Well, maybe she was a widow. Maybe she was an older, more well-established woman. We don't know, but it was her home, and they entered in, and he began to teach. Now Mary, Martha's younger sister, sat at the feet of Jesus because she wanted to learn all that she could from the Master. Martha, on the other hand, was pulling a Donna, and she was working hard to care for all her guests. I suspect that in the kitchen she had pots boiling and bread baking and beds to prepare and sheets to wash, and who knows what else she was trying to take care of and get done for Jesus and his disciples. It seems, though, as we read this story, that Martha's feeling a little bit overwhelmed by all the preparation. And here she looks over and she sees Mary just sitting at the feet of Jesus. And she becomes irritated. I mean, you can imagine what she's thinking. I wish I had time just to sit and listen to him. Must be nice to be so oblivious to life. Who in the world does Mary think she is? Somebody has to do all the work around here. Why doesn't Mary realize that I need help? It doesn't take a great deal of imagination to see Martha in the kitchen clanging pots and slamming cupboards. I mean, she's upset. She feels like she's being taken advantage of, and she doesn't like it. She's mad at her sister, and she's letting everybody in the house know about it. Guys, it's kind of like when you come in from a long day at work and you open the door and the cat goes screaming by and hits the screen behind you. And clothes are everywhere, and your wife smells like baby puke, and all this stuff. And then you ask, how was her day? Yeah, exactly. What? That's what it's like. So it doesn't take a whole great deal of imagination to see Martha agitated and just upset. I mean, she's overwhelmed, and that's not even the biggest part. She looks over, and there's her sister just sitting there at the feet of Jesus. So finally, she just explodes. She came to Jesus and she said, Lord, don't you care that she has left me to do all the work myself? Tell her to help me. Now, I wonder if Martha even realizes what she's doing here. She's accusing Jesus of not caring about her situation. Don't judge her so quickly yet. How many times do we come upon times like this? Jesus, don't you care? Well, we know that if he cares for the lilies in the field, and he gives the birds feathers to cover themselves up, and if not even one single sparrow falls from the sky without him knowing, surely he cares for us. Yet we get that same attitude sometimes. Lord, don't you care? Look at all these guys. Look what they're doing. I'm the only one doing anything. I'm the only one giving. I'm the only one helping. I'm the only one blah, blah, blah. Wine. Want some cheese with that wine sometimes. Now, she wants Jesus to make Mary get up and help her in the kitchen. Unfortunately, Jesus doesn't turn her into a pillar of salt. But instead, he took the opportunity to teach her something. Look at verse 41 again. Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you're worried and upset about so many things. But only one thing is needed. One of the other translations says, but only one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen what's better. and it won't be taken away from her. Jesus told Martha that she was stressed when she should have been resting. You know, it's possible that Jesus was saying, Martha, you're knocking yourself out to provide a buffet, but all these men need are sandwiches. He told her that Mary was really involved in a better pursuit than she was. Mary, by sitting at the feet of Jesus, had made a better choice. It's this better choice that I want to dwell on today. It's this better choice that I want to talk about today. So let's draw some principles from this account. The first thing we see is there is nothing wrong with working hard. There's nothing wrong with working hard. It's important that we not get the message of this story wrong. Jesus isn't telling Martha that it was wrong of her to make all these preparations. Martha was doing something good. It was tough to host a group of this size. But Martha was willing. You know, at that time it became more and more unpopular to be closely associated with Jesus. But Martha didn't care. She was doing her part. Her intent was to show love to Jesus through her actions. Jesus isn't saying this is wrong. In fact, we got to get this. The truth is it is the loving thing to do. In fact, just right before this, in Luke, we read the story of the Good Samaritan. And the whole point of that parable is that the person who truly loves his brother is the person who gets up and does something for him. So it wasn't wrong for Martha to be doing practical things for Jesus. You know, James in chapter 2 of his letter to the church wrote, faith without works is dead. In one point he says, I don't want to hear about your faith. I want to see your faith by what you do. So works and faith are closely related in the Bible. We don't get it sometimes because we dwell so much on the book of Romans that all we hear is grace, 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 grace. But that doesn't contradict the book of James, because James says, good, you have faith, great, wonderful, but I want to see your faith by what you do. Faith without works is dead. The true believer is the one who's serving. The true believer is the one who's setting up the chairs and serving the hurting, cooking meals for those in need of compassion, and cleaning up the church, and picking up the trash in the parking lot, and reaching out in 100 different ways. That's the true believer, and Jesus is not downplaying the importance of these things. So then the question comes up, so why did Jesus rebuke Mary then? Well, the second point I want to make this morning is you can do good things and totally miss the best things. Notice what Jesus said to Martha. He said, you're worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is needed. The problem wasn't that what Mary was doing was bad. The problem was that Mary had lost her focus. Matthew 6:33 tells us to seek ye first the kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you as well. Here's what happens when we get out of balance. Here's what happens when we neglect what is better. We get tied up in knots. And then we begin to blame other people. And then we get angry at others. And then we see our sacrifices being more significant than that of others. Why do I have to do everything? And little things become major issues. Hello? And we feel defeated, and we feel abandoned, and we feel all alone. And then we lose the joy of living. And how many of you know if Satan can steal your joy, he's got you totally defeated? And then we lose sight of Jesus. When we let these things cloud us, when we get confused by what is important, when the good things take place of the best things, we lose focus of Jesus. And it's so easy to do. I mean, what Martha did was the same thing as if you invited a bunch of people over to your home and then you spent all your time in the kitchen and never had a chance to visit with your guests. I mean, the meal that you prepared might have been wonderful, but the whole purpose of getting together in the first place is to spend time together and strengthen friendships, and that would have been lost in all the preparations. Imagine with me, if you would, a sports team that was really focused on giving back to the community. Now, suppose they worked so hard at all kinds of service projects that they no longer had time to practice. Wouldn't be much of a team, would it? That would just be foolish. But you know, this is also what happens in the family. We become so intent on providing everything for our families that we're never home to spend time with our families. Come on. I mean, we become so intent on getting ahead or helping our children experience everything there is to experience that we have no home life. And we end up trading what is truly best for things that are just good. We were watching a show before Christmas, and that's exactly what it was about. It was about a dad who had 2 children and a wife, and all through this, and he was a go-getter. He was out there all the time, and he was working, 70, 80 hours a week, and he was making the bucks, and they moved from their little house to this big old giant house, and his kids never saw him, his wife never saw him, and he built this big old huge cabin for her. It was their special place. Problem is, in order to pay for that big old cabin, he still didn't have time. And when they all got there for their Christmas vacation, all he did was talk on his stupid cell phone. All he did was text back and forth. All he did was carry on business because he had to keep this up. And him and his wife started getting into these big old hassles because she was feeling neglected. She was feeling like she was walking this road all by herself. And many, many times through this story, she told him, I don't care about the house. I don't care about the cars. I don't care where our kids go to school. What I care about is us. I don't want all those things. I don't need all those things. What I need is you. It can happen in our family. But you know, this can also happen in our church too. You know, when we lose sight of the main issues, we get in trouble. That's why we say here, we don't care where you've been. We don't care what you've done. We've been there, we've done that, but we care where you're going. And when you start to major on all the minors, like you got to dress just right, or you got to do this, or you got to be from a certain part of town, or you got to give a certain portion of money, or this or that, we lose sight of what's important. The important thing is this, that there is a world out there that's dying and going to hell if they don't find Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. But we're intent on fighting so much about the stupid stuff, the color of our carpets, the color of our walls, how much room we've got, how many people are sitting in the chairs, that we forget that unless we get off our dead rear ends and do something, then people will die a devil's death and end up in a devil's hell because we're too busy with the other things and to worry about their soul. Hello? When we lose sight of the main issues, we get in trouble. We argue about how dinner is served and forget why dinner is being served. We focus on the elements of worship when we forget the focus of our worship. We spend too much time competing with other churches that we forget our mission to reach the world with the gospel. You know, years and years ago, I used to belong to an organization. Let me back up. Years and years ago, I used to belong to a social club called the Valencia County Ministerial Alliance. And I'll never forget the last time I attended this, and I don't know. I don't do good with a lot of other preachers. I just really don't. Actually, they don't do good with me. They think I need a haircut, and for every question, my question to them is, what does the Bible say? To which they responded, do you always have to bring the Bible into everything? Well, yeah. We're preachers, hello. But the last time I went to one of these meetings, we were over at Henrietta's. We were sitting in a back room, and we had a big old long table, and there was about 25 or 30 of us, and I listed this one to talk about how they had built their congregation out of another $100,000. They're going to build a gymnasium. And this church was going to build a new auditorium, and this church was going to do this, and this church was going to do that. And then, you know, as it went around the table and everybody was doing these grandiose things with their buildings and their parking lots and their programs, it came to me, and I was just kind of like, oh, crap, what did I tell these guys? So I said, well, you know, last week, 2 crack whores came down the aisle, and they gave their life to Jesus Christ, and last month, we baptized 6 people, and we've got 2 new families in the church, but other than that, nothing. And they just all looked at me like, how lame. But you see, when we get our eyes off the things that are best, then we settle for things that are good. See, there's nothing wrong with building the buildings or putting in new carpet or doing all those things. There's nothing wrong with it, but when that becomes the main focus of why we gather together, when we forget that we're here to worship, and when we forget that who are here to worship, then we've got ourselves in trouble. Jesus said, "Go ye therefore into all the world, teaching, baptizing, commanding." That's our job, guys. That's our job. This can happen to us personally too. It can happen in our personal lives too. We forget that you can do good things and miss the best things. If we're not careful, we want to taste everything on the buffet of life. So we serve on every community and we participate in every activity and we get involved with everything and we listen to the constant manipulation of the world, and man, is it always screaming at us. And we give up our time with God. And when this happens, we're no different than the woman in the scripture here. Look, there's nothing wrong with working hard. But you can concentrate on so much on doing the good things that you miss the best things altogether. And then thirdly, I want you to see that feeding the soul is the best thing. You know, Jesus told his disciple, what profits a man? What does a man gain? I mean, where has he made it if he gains the whole world yet loses his soul? And I'm not so sure that Jesus was just talking about a soul dying and going to hell. You know, we can trade in our souls even though we may be saved. We can trade in our desires, our stuff, put our important things on top. And we can literally lose our soul. And feeding the soul is the best thing. The reason Mary was commended was because she realized that the important thing while Jesus was in the house was to sit at the feet of Jesus and learn all she could. You know, I heard a great line one time. Our job is not to make God part of our lives. Our job is to become part of God's life. Our job is not to make our plans and then say, God bless my plans, God bless my agenda. Our job is to find out where God is moving, find out where God is working, and then join him there. I was so tickled at our Christmas Eve service. We had a guy sitting back there, and yeah, he was about half snockered, and I didn't care. But I mean, you know, he was having a great time before he even got here. But anyway, he sat back here and he just hooped and hollered the whole time, and so I just said, man, this guy's having way too much fun. I got to see what's up. So I chased him back down to the back, and he hung around for a while, visited with everybody, and I'm going to tell you what, you guys are awesome. I mean, one thing about our congregation is that you will not get in and out without somebody saying, glad you're here, or give me a hug, or whatever the case is. Now, this guy, you got a little extra if you gave him a hug. Woo! But anyway, he was sitting back there, and I said, so did somebody invite you? Or, you know, I always want to know how people find Westside Family Chapel. And he said, no, he said, I live back here. He said, you know, I have passed by this building so many times. And tonight I just had to come in. I said, man, I'm so glad you did. I'm so glad you did. And he said, so am I. I was so touched by the kids. Everybody in here has talked to me, he said. Everybody's treated me like family. That's what it's about, guys. That's what it's about. The reason Mary was commended was she realized that the most important thing while Jesus was in the house was to spend time at the feet of Jesus. So our job is not to make our plans and then ask God to bless them. Our job is to find out what God's doing and then join him. Let me try and make this practical, giving you a very simple principle. We must first take care of what's in secret if we are to maintain what is public. Let me tell you what I mean. We all know that there has to be water in the well if we want water to come out the faucet. Amen? It doesn't matter if you have electricity to the pump, or maybe you have a pitcher pump. It doesn't matter how much you prime it. If there's no water in the well, you're not going to get water out of the faucet. Now, I grew up in Bosque Farms, and most of us, we had great water, but we all pounded our own wells. If you needed a new well, you just went out there with a 20, 30-foot piece of pipe and a sledgehammer, and you started getting it into the ground, and voila, you've got good, clean, ice cold. Oh, that water was so good. I mean, that's before all the city folk moved down there and started dumping their sewer into it. Anyway, but it was good water. But every once in a while, you'd be out there. We had a electric pump for the house, but for our irrigation, we had an old gas pump. You'd have to get it started, old Briggs and Stratton motor. But so you get the motor started, but then you got to get water up to the pump. See, my dad never heard about check valves. Anyway, so you would take a coffee can full of water, and you'd start pouring it in that old pitcher pump, and you'd start pumping, and you'd hear it start. And pretty soon water would start running out, and then you kicks in gear and all this water coming out. But every once in a while, we'd have no water. The well dried up. If you want water to come out of the faucet, hello? It's got to have water in the well. So these things that we do in secret, we do to maintain that which is public. In the same way, our personal walk with God must be in order if we want to live victoriously and have an impact on those around us. Now, you can disregard everything we've said this morning if you just want to live a mundane, complacent, sleepy, apathetic, miserable, unhappy Christian life. Just disregard everything we're talking about this morning. Go do just like you've been doing, and everything will be just as miserable as it's been, okay? But you know what the definition of insanity is, right? Doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. If we want something to change, if we want that joy back in our spirit today, then we're going to have to start doing things different than we've done in the past. If we want to be excited about being called a child of God, if we want to have the joy of the Lord in our soul again, then we're going to have to start priming that old well. We're going to have to start doing things differently. I'm always convicted by the example of some of the great saints of the past. I love to read history. I love history. And I read a lot about, I'm always bringing up like Fox's Book of Martyrs and stuff like that. I read a lot about those who have come through the Holocaust and stuff like that and kept a hold of their faith and still came out the other side going through all this stuff. Richard Wurmbrand and all these great men of the faith. But you know what? They all seem to have one thing in common. The more demanding their life became, the more intentional they were about spending time sitting at the feet of Jesus. And this won't happen automatically, guys. We have to make time and we have to make a decision to feed our soul. We have to choose to make time for God. We have to choose to make time for our family. We have to choose to make time for our marriage and for the work that will advance the kingdom of God. So how do we go about this process of choosing what's better? I'm so glad you asked. First, we need to examine our calendar. We need to look at our calendar. The human tendency is to try and cram more and more and more into our calendars every year. But let me suggest to you this morning that we take a different tactic. We need to resolve to not make more use of our time, but to make better use of our time and our resources and our energy. Here are some questions you can use to evaluate your life. Where are you becoming distracted? I mean, what's stopping you? The Apostle Paul says that we're in a race. It's a race called life. It's a race called Christianity. It's a race called reaching the goal, staying faithful. And it's a race we're in. He says to throw off everything that so easily distracts us. Where are you becoming distracted? Are you going overboard? Are you chasing the wrong prize? And more importantly, are you teaching your children to chase the wrong thing? Secondly, are you finding yourself constantly stressed by life? If so, then you've lost perspective. Worry is a good indicator that something's wrong. Amen? Stressed people commonly blame other people when the problem is really their own attitude. And we can and we must choose to rest in Him, meaning Christ. If we don't have time to do so, we need to make time. And then thirdly, have you made a place in your schedule to replenish your soul? Seriously? Are you spending time with God on a daily basis, on a regular basis? Do you take time just to sit at the feet of the Master? The Bible tells us in Hebrews not to give up the meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but let us encourage one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. Listen, that day is not approaching. That day is here. I mean, it's upon us. A common statement that comes out of my mouth for the last couple of years is, I have never seen this kind of a world that we live in today. This is something that's totally foreign to me. And listen, I came through the 60s and 8 years in the 70s. This is all new to me. The uncaring, the narcissistic, I'm the only thing that matters attitude is just something that I can't grab a hold of. I mean, children killing their parents and parents killing their children and drunk driving on the rampage and all this stuff. You know what that is? I mean, you know what it's about when that guy in his little hot rod car comes up behind you and weaves in 2 or 3 cars in front of you? It's about you don't matter and the only thing that matters is me. And I don't know this world. I don't know it. I don't understand it. Something's got to change. How did I get there? Have you made a place in your schedule to replenish your soul? Are you obeying this instruction by making worship and Bible study an immovable part of your weekly schedule? Are you putting time aside to learn, to read, to encourage, and be encouraged by others? And then secondly, we need to make time for God. You know, some of you are saying, that sounds great, but I don't have time. Can I just be honest with you today? You're lying. And all liars will have their part in the lake of fire. Amen? You do have time. You do. In addition to making changes in your calendar, let me give you some suggestions on how to make some time. Now, Donna, I don't want you to say anything because I'm talking to me too. Because that's my deal. You know, I thought it would be great to become a pastor. Man, you just sit around kind of Christian nirvana going, oh, cool, just me and God. I'm going to read my Bible, I'm going to pray, I'm going to sing hymns. Not. It didn't happen like that at all. One of my main problems is I just don't have time. But in addition to making some changes in your calendar, here's some suggestions as how to make some time. First, get up a little earlier. Hello? I know all of you are morning persons. I see you as you drag in here on Sunday morning at 10:15, which, by the way, I've already been up for 8 hours. Get up a little earlier. And instead of listening to music during the day, listen to the Bible on tape or CD, or listen to solid teaching. You can download a lot of good teaching on the internet for nothing. Thirdly, cut back on your time on the internet. Oh. Turn off Facebook. Oh! Yes, Lord, I'm listening. Right? So much of this is wasted time. Let me tell you how this works, okay? There are times when I just need to sit down and mindlessly do something. I go and go and go. I get up going and I go to bed going. And sometimes I just need to get away and just do something mindless. So I found a couple of mindless games on Facebook to play on my computer. And so I'd get up, because I just get up really early, and I'd do my devotion and spend some time with God and then play a game. Then work on my lesson and play a game. And then work on my sermon for Sunday morning and then maybe play another game or two. But then, you know me, I'm not habitual at all. That couple of morning games turned into coming home games and going to bed games. And instead of spending time sitting with my wife, and that's really dumb. Look at my wife, she's gorgeous. I spent time playing games. Cut back your time on the internet. Number 4, eliminate one television show a day, Donna. Guys. Just one of your episodes. No, we've got a. You guys know our foster son, and his most important question of the day is, how many episodes do I get? Get rid of one episode. Miss one television show a day, and use that time on something that feeds your soul, something that'll uplift you. Use a daily devotional to guide you for your daily reading. My wife every year does Through the Bible in a Year. It's really neat. You can find them everywhere. Go ahead.
It's a daily audio Bible. It's DAB. Download the app, and it's amazing. You just listen for about 15, 20 minutes. It goes through the entire Old Testament and the New Testament and Psalms and Proverbs in a year. And then he does a little bit of a commentary at the end, which really teaches you a lot. It's literally 20 minutes. I get up every morning, put my headphones on, and that's my daily.
And this guy is also a pastor, and his wife is just gorgeous, and they are passionate about their life in Christ, so you will be inspired. Use a daily devotional to guide your daily reading. Get up and read a few pages of solid Christian book every morning. It's better to read well than to read a lot. You can read Oswald Chambers, My Utmost for His Highest. You can read something by Max Lucado, Chuck Swindoll, Dr. Kennedy. All these guys are incredible. They will feed your soul. And then the last thing in this category is try writing out your prayers. Try writing out your prayers. Start you a prayer journal. Or pray while you walk in the morning. Don't walk in the morning. Well, pray while you're running from your wife in the morning, guys. Turn off the radio. Talk to the Lord in your car. And then lastly, think about the real cost of spiritual starvation. What is the real cost of starving yourself spiritually? Throughout the course of the year, it's important that we remind ourselves regularly that when the soul is starving, our lives will be out of balance. We'll run fast, but we won't have any satisfaction from what we're doing. We'll find that everybody irritates us. We'll begin to see every issue as a contest to be won. Listen, someone once said, a heart that's only concerned about me will gradually overtake a heart for Christ. You won't even notice it's happening, but your soul will begin to shrivel. If you don't feed it, it will shrivel. If we take care of the center of our lives, if we care for our spiritual health, it will impact every aspect of our lives. We'll have a better perspective, a better attitude. My family will go, thank you, Jesus. And we'll be a bigger blessing to the people around us. So this is a balance we must walk. This is what I present to you. The first day of this great year, the year of our Lord, 2017. We must put first things first. We must commit to slow down and maybe even just sit in the dust and allow Him to teach us the way that we should go. Then, after we've heard, we need to get up and get to the work that God has called us to do. Seniors, you're not finished yet. You haven't got to the goalpost yet. We're not done. We got to get up and get to the work God has called us to do. I so appreciate our seniors in here. They do things that none of you guys can do. They love in a way that none of us have reached yet. I so appreciate our seniors. But we have to stop, listen, and then get to it. There needs to be a part of Mary and a part of Martha in every one of us. A part that's busy doing the work of the Lord and a part that's quiet and is still listening to the word of the Lord. So may God help us to learn to sit. Donna, would you come? Listen to the whispers of the Spirit. And then after we've listened, after we've heard, may He motivate us to serve Him with joy. I am looking forward to an incredible year this year. Things are getting exciting. You know, I don't much care for the policies of our current president. And of course, I've never shared with this with you before, but I don't much care